Chapter 14. Good News. My voice thundered through the chamber, shaking the stone and commanding every soul to stillness. Demons, I bellowed, you will surrender and drop your weapons. The words echoed like a war drum, crashing off the walls. The vast chamber suddenly felt small, as if the very air recoiled from the force of my voice. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then the demons laughed. The lead demon sneered from the stage, "Kill as many as you can." At his command, the possessed surged forward, swarming the defenders around Keenan and Orin. I roared in anger and moved forward. My tail swept through the crowd like a battering ram, smashing 50 of them against the wall. Most died instantly. The enemies were too intermingled with our allies to risk freezing them all. I had to pick my way through the fight one by one, careful to avoid any collateral damage. So I turned and grabbed them with my claws. I tore through the possessed, hurling them into stone, ripping them apart. I fought with fury and precision, carving a path towards the stage. I saw the demon knock Keenan to the ground, hammering his shield again and again. Nearby, Orin was being driven into a corner, fending off 6 attackers. His loyal men were scattered, bloodied, but still fighting. I reached the demon. With a roar, I seized him in both claws and tore him in two. His body went limp, lifeless. I flung the remains aside and kept moving, clearing the room with brutal efficiency. When the last possessed fell, silence returned. The chamber was in ruins. Bodies lay in heaps, blood pooling across the stone. Only 20, perhaps 25 of Orin's men still stood, most wounded or worse. Exhaustion hit me like a wave. Holding my dragon form had drained more than I expected. I hadn't fully recovered from my near death all those years ago, but my time healing beneath the mountain, thanks to Mother, had done more than I realized. Keenan approached, wiping blood from his hands. His face was pale, but his eyes were steady. "Thank you," he said. "You saved all our lives. That's twice now you've saved mine. I owe you a great debt." He glanced around the wreckage, managing a faint smile. "I only wish my friend Halvar were here to meet you. He would have loved this." I chuckled, the sound rumbling through the floor. "Oh, I think you'll be the one who loves this," I said, a knowing grin spreading across my face. Keenan blinked, confused. I chuckled again and shifted. The transformation rippled through me, bones shifting, wings vanishing, scales retreating. In moments I stood before him, in human form once more. Keenan stared, eyes wide. "No," he breathed. "You're messing with me. This is projection, illusion, something." "No tricks," I said gently. "It's really me." Rieger stepped into the light, grinning. "Did you just remember?" I nodded. It came back to me when I was about to leave, but I couldn't go. Keenan's brow furrowed. He reached out with his senses, trying to detect magic. His expression stayed tense, uncertain. Rieger spoke again. "The ship said you were different. This must have been what she meant." I nodded slowly. "That's right. I'd forgotten." Rieger continued. "The other dragon asked me where her brother was, but she called you brother." I blinked. "Wait, I thought you said she asked you the same thing." Rieger gave a sly smile. "Nope, I just nodded when you said that. You assumed." Keenan's expression shifted, part disbelief, part frustration. "All this time, you could have turned into a dragon and you didn't? What about when we were kids? Was that all fake?" I shook my head. "No, none of it was fake. Back then I was vulnerable. I'd been poisoned. I needed time to heal. Children grow, and that growth is full of healing energy. I needed that time." I hesitated, then added, "Some of my memories have come back, but some are still sealed. I couldn't tell you because I didn't know." I met his gaze, voice soft. "I'm sorry. If I'd have known, I would have told you." He stared at me in silence. My heart sank. Fear crept in, fear that I'd just lost my best friend. "Please, Keenan," I said, voice trembling. "Don't be mad at me." He studied me, unreadable. Then he burst out laughing. "Mad at you?" he said. "Are you kidding me? My best friend is a dragon. The dragon. Do you have any idea how much more trouble I would have dragged us into as kids if I'd have known that?" I laughed, relieved. It's probably for the best that you didn't. He laughed again, shaking his head. Oh, this is fantastic. His smile faded into curiosity. Does it hurt when you change? I shook my head. Not really. Feels more like a good stretch after a nap. Huh, he nodded thoughtfully. Well, I've got a ton of questions, but he gestured to the wreckage. We should probably deal with all this first. Then I can start planning how to use you to conquer every island and then the rest of the world. He grinned mischievously. We turned to Orrin, who had been quietly watching. For a moment, all of us simply stood there, breathing in the aftermath. Then Orrin sighed. Well, he said, I suppose Brahm has succeeded in his mission, stopping the Order of Light. He glanced at the 25 bloodied survivors. Looks like our leaders failed us. Keenan stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. Or maybe, he said, it just made us stronger for the fight ahead. Orrin gave a dry smile, then looked at me. Is he always this optimistic? I smiled. Yeah, and sometimes it's nauseating. Keenan glared at me. Rieger and I just laughed. Orrin straightened, his tone turning serious. I'd rather not fight a dragon or see more of my men die needlessly. I'll surrender myself, but only if you promise to spare my men. Let them go free. At that, the man who'd sat at the table the night before stepped forward. I go where he goes. If that means the dungeon or the gallows, so be it. Orrin groaned. Ever the drama queen, eh, Alric? Alric shrugged, smirking. One by one, the other men stepped forward, each pledging to surrender alongside Orrin. He shook his head, clearly frustrated. The whole point of me surrendering was to get you all out of trouble. One of them stepped closer. You are our leader. We are family. The Order stands together, even at the end. I glanced at Keenan, who gave me a knowing smile and whispered, Told you. I knew I sensed good in him. Then louder he addressed the group. Very well. We'll take you all to the king. We burned the bodies, then began the journey back to Burke. The remnants of the Order walked with quiet pride, heads held high despite the weight of defeat. The mood was somber. None of us spoke much, each lost in thought. We liked Orrin, but we all knew his role in the plot to kill the queen would not end well. So did he. When we reached the castle, the guards were stunned to see us leading prisoners. More arrived quickly, flanking them with weapons drawn. The prisoners stood tall, but despair clung to them. They knew what waited. We arrived at the castle and we were ushered into the throne room, guards flanking the prisoners at least 2 to 1. Brahm entered, flanked by his sons, and surveyed the scene. A flicker of a smile crossed his face. So, you defeated them all. Excellent. Perhaps now the queen can live in peace and we can turn our attention to more pressing matters. Keenan stepped forward, gesturing to Orrin. This is Orrin, the last ranking lieutenant of the Order. The rest of the leadership, he paused, glanced at Orrin, then lowered his gaze, perished in combat with demons. Brahm's brows lifted. Demons? Keenan nodded. Yes, most of the Order was overrun. We fought alongside the survivors to defeat them. Brahm's expression grew thoughtful. Interesting. Orrin stepped forward. King Brahm, I surrender myself to your judgment. I only ask that you spare my men. They were following my orders. Rannoch scoffed. You're in no position to make requests, not after nearly killing the queen. Perseus leaned toward him, muttering, Not now. Brahm shot a glance at his son, then approached Orrin, locking eyes. And why should I do that? You and your men are sworn to kill my wife and purge magic from the realm, except perhaps a few paladins. Orrin nodded solemnly. Would you not do what you believed was right to protect your people if our roles were reversed? A faint smile tugged at Brahm's lips. He let out a short laugh. So you ask for mercy, though you've given none, and don't deserve it. I don't ask for myself, Orrin said. I ask for my men. They are my family. Please. He paused. Would you not do the same for yours? Rannoch muttered, a family who murders women. The king didn't respond immediately. He studied Orrin in silence, then spoke. So tell me, what would you have me do? Release 25 men who would kill my wife the moment they had the chance? Orin struggled to respond, clearly at a loss, searching for some way to save his men. Then the Queen entered, quietly. The room fell still. Soldiers tensed, hands tightening on hilts. The men of the Order stiffened at the sight of her, their sworn target now standing before them, unarmed. The air thickened. Brahm stepped toward her and murmured, "Honey, I think it's best if you leave." She shook her head, bare feet gliding across the stone floor, her white dress flowing to her ankles. Black hair framed a calm, resolute face. "I would see my killer," she said softly. Silence followed as she approached Orin, who stood frozen, uncertain. She looked him in the eye. Her voice was gentle but clear. "Do you want to kill me?" Orin hesitated. Confusion crossed his face. Finally he said, "I don't want to kill anyone. I just want my world to be safe." "Is that so?" she asked, never breaking eye contact. Without warning, she reached into her dress and drew a dagger, holding it out to him. Brahm's sons and soldiers surged forward, but she raised her hand. They stopped. "Take the knife," she said. Orin stared at her in shock, then glanced at Brahm. The weight of the moment took all the air out of the room. "Take it," she repeated more firmly. He exhaled, shoulders sagging. "I can't." His head dropped. "I can't," he said quietly. "Why not?" she pressed. "Isn't this what you want? Isn't this what you stand for?" Still staring at the floor, he muttered, "I can face men in battle, but I can't kill an unarmed woman." She leaned in slightly, voice barely above a whisper. "Why not?" He shook his head faintly at a loss. "I don't know." "I think I know," the Queen said, still watching him. Alric stepped forward, voice sharp with anger. "I'll do it." The Queen turned to him, calm. "You look familiar. What's your name?" Alric's eyes blazed. "Alric Graves. You murdered my brother 22 years ago in an alley, burned them all to a crisp." He spat at her feet. She studied him for a long moment. Finally she said, "I remember." Alric turned to Keenan, fury boiling over. "See? She admits it, and you do nothing." Keenan, caught off guard, turned to the Queen, waiting. "I didn't admit to murder," she said evenly. "I said I remember." Alric laughed bitterly. "Remember what? That you torched my brother and 3 innocent men on their way home from the inn? They were 18, 19, and you murdered them. For what?" Her voice softened, though her composure held. "Your brother. He had blonde hair, didn't he?" Alric blinked. "What?" "Blonde hair," she repeated gently. He nodded stiffly, uncertain. "Yes," she said quietly. "He was burned. But he was already dead when I set the fire." Her voice carried a shadow of grief. "He died in my arms." Alric was taken aback, shaken. "What? You expect me to believe that?" he stammered, struggling to form thoughts swirling in his mind. The Queen's gaze didn't falter. "I was sleeping in that alley, alone, dealing with my own failures. A group of young men found me. They mocked me, threatened me." Alric stood frozen, his fury wavering beneath growing confusion. "As I tried to defend myself," the Queen said softly, "your brother intervened. He told them to stop, told them to walk away. But they were drunk, laughing, egging each other on. One of them shoved him and he fell, on a knife. I don't know whose," she added. "I tried to help him, but there was nothing I could do." Alric's lips parted, but no words came. Tears filled his eyes. "He died in my arms," she said. "He was the first person who ever tried to help me, who showed me kindness." Her voice wavered. "When he was gone, I lost control. In my rage, I burned the entire street. I didn't think, I just reacted in sorrow." Alric dropped to his knees, tears streaming silently down his face. The Queen knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I am sorry," she whispered, "but your brother was a hero to me." The room fell so silent even the torches seemed to hold their breath. The Queen rose, stepped back, and turned to the King. I see no threat here. Without another word, she turned and left the chamber. We stood in uneasy silence, unsure what to do next. Brom remained where he was, studying the men before him, his expression heavy with thought. After a long pause, he gestured for his sons to approach. They gathered round him, speaking in hushed tones. The conversation stretched on until it felt like time itself had paused. At last, Brom stepped forward, stopping in front of Orrin with a sigh. What are we going to do with you? Orrin opened his mouth, but the king cut him off. Yes, yes, spare your men, I know. He looked up, exhaling sharply. You swore to kill the queen, and yet wherein she stood before you, unarmed, not one of you made a move. He began to pace slowly, shaking his head. Normally I'd send you all to the quarries or the labor fields for a few years. That would be lenient. But surviving demons, that counts for something. He paused, locking eyes with Orrin, who straightened, the faintest glimmer of hope on his face. Some would counsel me to hang every one of you, and they'd be justified. Even the paladins wouldn't protest, I imagine. He glanced at Keenan, who met his gaze with a look of sadness and gave a slow, solemn nod. But there's a war coming, the king continued, and we're not ready. Losing 25 trained fighters would be unwise. He stood straighter now, his tone shifting. Do any of you have skills worth keeping? Eager to spare his men, Orrin stepped forward, outlining the Order's internal structure, their scouts, their spies, the unique skills of each soldier. Brom raised a hand, halting him. Wait, are you saying you have spies in every major city, including among the elves and the dwarves? Keenan and I exchanged tense glances. Well, not the dwarves, Orrin admitted, but yes, the elves, even one of the Noctari clans. Brom looked intrigued. Perseus stepped forward. What if we use them for intelligence work? Couriers, scouts, informants. They could monitor demonic activity across the island. Give us a chance to act before it spreads. Orrin nodded quickly. We could do that. Brom considered the suggestion, then said, All right, but Perseus will oversee the network. He turned to Orrin, gaze sharp. You, however, won't be leaving here. Orrin's shoulders sagged. He nodded. Understood. Then, to everyone's surprise, Brom burst out laughing. He strode up to Orrin and clapped a firm hand on his shoulder. See that big guy over there, he said, gesturing to Victus, who stepped forward, towering and stone-faced. While we were talking, I learned something interesting. Turns out you two are practically brothers. Orrin blinked. But I don't have a brother. Brom smirked. You do now. You look enough alike, and that's the story we'll go with. If you're willing to train under him, you and Victus will serve as my personal bodyguards. Victus stepped closer, his presence looming. Orrin looked at him, then back at the king, unsure if this was a reward or a sentence. I couldn't help but chuckle. Just when I thought one giant was enough, now there are two. Brom laughed. Before all this, before you came back, before my wife entered, I spoke with Keenan. He's a fine judge of character, and both of you now assure me there's no evil in Orrin. So here's your chance. Serve the realm, stay out of prison, and help us stop the demons. Orrin nodded eagerly. Yes, thank you. Brom winked at Rannoch. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, eh, son? Rannoch sighed. I suppose that's one way to do it, he muttered. Perseus and Rannoch escorted the remaining prisoners out with the guards, while Victus led Orrin away. The king came over to us, smiling warmly, shaking our hands one by one. I'm truly glad we met, he said, but I've got preparations to oversee, and as much as I'd love to stay and chat, duty calls. We nodded, letting him know we had to be on our way as well. There were updates to deliver to my uncles and the dwarves. As we made our way out and headed back towards Grissom City, Keenan laughed. I can't wait to see you explain to your uncles that you're basically one of their gods now. I shook my head with a chuckle. Even after all I've seen, I'm not ready for that conversation. Rieger grinned. This is going to be very entertaining. We all laughed and with lighter hearts continued our journey towards Grissom. We arrived late and went straight to sleep.